I think we do a really good job of differentiating ourselves from our competitors.
You think so?
Yeah, I think we do. But I think we could do a little bit better.
What now?
I think we need to invest in a fleet of Paragon vehicles and wrap. I'm going to have my face on a boat.
Okay.
We've
we've
determined that. We can't get my face on a balloon because that's way too expensive.
That was really expensive.
Really expensive. But we could get a fleet of cars and put my smiling face all over the hoods or like in the rear windows. It's just Paragon all over it and say, "We rock" or something. I think we just really could take it one level up.
Imagine driving down the street and you just look in your rearview mirror and there's Skip following you on the hood of a van.
With a thumbs up and an eye, I think that'd be...
I don't know if I've shared this on the podcast before, but you know my thoughts on wrapping vehicles.
Well,
you have to be a stellar driver to be willing to put your brand on a vehicle.
So the only person who can't have that would be me.
So you are not allowed to wrap your vehicle. I wouldn't say you're the most stellar driver. Not that you're a bad driver, but you would get a reputation for your driving with our brand on it.
I'm a very good driver in the driveway.
In the driveway.
Maybe we'll put it on Kufal's car. He drives.
Yeah.
He's the epitome of
I'd
the
be
safe
down
driver.
for that.
How about your car?
I don't know. I don't know if I would want
With a
your
big
face on my car, to be honest.
Or with plus a big baby on board sticker that's going to be in the back. Yeah, but that's one way to talk about being standing out. But we're also going to be talking about today on the podcast of how to stand out in a really competitive market. And we've got some great guests here today to talk about that. So stick around and we'll come back and talk about it. Hey everyone, this is Skip Ranke.
And Emma Opperman Vogt.
And welcome to the Main Street Marketing Podcast.
A podcast where we discuss anything and everything marketing.
And today we are going to talk about being a standout in a highly competitive market. And there's no more highly competitive markets than real estate. And today we have Rob and Amy Krieghoff from Krieghoff Ackley Realty to talk about that and how they set themselves apart in a highly competitive world. And so as a real estate agent, boy, I can't even imagine what you guys do in with how you sell homes. But how do you set yourselves apart as a real estate as agents and or an organization?
Well, we do some of our own marketing to market our team, and also we fall under the Coldwell Banker umbrella. So we used to be with First Weber, but we joined Coldwell Banker exactly a year ago.
Okay.
Largely because we liked their marketing platform a lot better than what we had up to that point. So as a individual agent and as a team, we're constantly trying out new marketing platforms and different things to market ourselves as a team and also to market our clients when we're selling their houses.
Do they no, so you have a bunch, does the agents do their own how does that work? Is like they're like your realty company markets, but do the agents do their own marketing as well?
We do, but we try to brand everything that we do with both Coldwell Banker's logo and also with our Krieghoff Ackley logo.
Okay.
But we're responsible for marketing ourselves through social media, and sometimes we buy leads and different things to promote ourselves. The company does not spend that kind of money on their individual agents. If a real estate company is spending money on anything, it's to recruit more agents. So once they have you, you're kind of on your own to promote yourself.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So in a world where there's dozens of options for buyers and sellers to choose who they work with, what do you ultimately believe influences their decision of who, at the end of the day, they decide to work with?
Well, that's a multifaceted question or answer, I probably should say. There's, I think, over 4,000 real estate agents in Southeast Wisconsin,
Wow.
and everybody knows a real estate agent. So it is very competitive, to your point.
4,000?
I think so. And that number varies a little bit. And it seems like when the interest rates go way up, some of the real estate agents fall off. And then out of that 4,000 agents, there's only a pretty small percentage of agents that do most of the business. Because anybody can get a real estate license, but it's how you grow yourself and your team, if you have one, and how you build up your database. But so to stand out from the competition, a lot of times if we get an opportunity to meet with a potential client, it's sharing with them the different things that we will do to market their home and get them buyers quicker. Or if we're working with a buyer, working for a large international company like Coldwell Banker, for example, gives us some additional tools and abilities that we wouldn't have had if we were like a smaller boutique agency, for example.
Okay.
Also, we're full service, so we may cost a little more sometimes, but you get so much more value for working with us.
Okay. So I mean, so building on that, then, a lot of your business a lot of it's got to come from referrals. You know, people that you've worked with before in the job that you did. So how do you build that trust and that differentiation? So they say, oh, you don't even look at anybody else. Right. You got to call Amy. You got to call Rob. I mean, what are some of the things that you do to build that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Those are things that you just learn from experience and doing. And I'm fortunate right now in my 14th year, I think, of real estate, that most of my business is referral, to the point where I can be a little bit choosy about the business I work with now. It comes from doing a really good job the first time you meet a client, the first time you work with a client, hopefully the first time you sell the client either a home or list and sell their property for them. If you do a good job for them, that's paramount. And then we stay in touch with our clients. So we have a program that we adhere to where we have like a minimum of X number of touches per year that we're reaching out to these past customers of ours through various different things we mail out. We do sports schedules, we do holiday cards, we do calendars that are good for a full year. We also host client appreciation parties.
Okay.
And we do email drip campaigns. What am I forgetting, Rob?
No, I mean, a number of those things. You know, I think part of it too, one thing I think that's really important from Amy's perspective is, you know, meeting with the client, buyer, seller, and seeing if we're a good fit. Because that's a really big piece. Like, you know, we both spent many years in corporate America. We've been in sales for 35 plus years. 40 plus years, and you know, so we kind of know who we're good working with, and maybe it wouldn't be the right fit. So that's a part of it. I think another key piece is, you know, are you a full-time agent?
Okay.
Oftentimes there are a lot of part-time agents. That's a really big change. You know, it's fine if you're a part-time agent. It's not to be a knock on it, but you know, we live and breathe it. This is what we do every day. That's a big part of it, and it adds that sort of level of expertise to the conversation. And then back to what Amy was saying before, as far as you know, sort of retaining that and doing the right job for the client, the communication is like absolutely, positively, 100% the most important piece. And that's something that Amy really strives when she's working with clients, and we really try to work with our team, is clear communication. A lot of steps through the real estate process. So many moving parts. I think by the time you get an accepted offer to closing, roughly 30 to 40 people will touch that deal in some way, shape, or form.
I'm sorry, how many people?
30 to 40.
Wow. Okay.
So there's so many different moving parts. Inspections, appraisals, lenders, all sorts of different things you're doing. And if there's issues with the house, you've got contractors coming in and involved. So it's really important to be clear and concise and talking from a buyer's perspective, what are the things that we can do to help protect you, and from a seller's perspective, what things can we do to help make help you decide on the best offer for your property. And
just to kind of frame the question that you started this with, what do we do to get repeat business referrals and that sort of thing? So that the multiple touches throughout the year are to stay top of mind, because there's a statistic out there somewhere where X percentage or homeowners, what percentage of them use the same agent a second time, and it's not a very high percentage. So people forget, right? If it's 3-4 years later, and if you've never had another interaction with the real estate agent that you worked with, you might not remember them. Plus, you maybe your next door neighbor happens to be a realtor or something like that. So just the top of mind, staying in touch with them, and a lot of the referrals might not be the same client that's now selling again so soon, but they've got a daughter or a cousin or a friend or a neighbor that needs a realtor. And seriously, very fortunate that this has been happening a lot for us and for our team.
Have you experienced a lot of generational type referrals where like the mom and then the grandma?
Most definitely.
Really?
Yeah. We have a client appreciation party coming up soon, and the mom and dad are coming, and they have 3 children that purchased a house from me in the last couple of years.
Wow.
So they're all coming, and
That's cool.
That's
yeah.
pretty cool. And that's rewarding from your perspective too, because it's like you get to handle all those people all the way down the line. That's
Definitely.
pretty. Any three generations, like grandma, mom, and then all the way down. I'm just curious.
Think about that. But when I'm referred to as this is our family realtor, that is like a really good feeling.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't get that in the first couple years of real estate or any career for that matter.
No.
And so it does speak to like you got to stick it out and be in the business a long
I
time.
just had that conversation with somebody who was a financial planner today. I said, you're not. If you've been in the business for 2 years, it's a lot different than if you've been in it for 10 or 12 or 15 or 20.
Definitely.
So, and a lot of people don't make it past that 2 year period of time too.
Very
so
true.
that there's a lot to be said about longevity is key.
Yep.
I do believe in that.
Definitely.
So it sounds like there's a lot of differentiators from the brokerage standpoint and as well as like you as individuals. Is there one you find more important when it comes to branding and being different? Like, is it the team or is it the individual or a mixture of both?
I'd say that's a good question. I think it depends on the agent. So I mean, if in Amy's case, it's largely her, and there are times where I guess the broker could make a difference. I mean, we were with First Weber before we went over to Coldwell, and First Weber's been in Wisconsin for many years. They only practice real estate in Wisconsin, so it's got a really good name. But I don't know if anybody's ever really hired Amy or I over the years just because that's who we were working with. The broker can be helpful because they bring technology to the table.
Oh, sure.
Real estate's really changed so much as to how we interact with people, right? And so it allows us to be a little bit more efficient in our interaction with people because you can use their CRMs and all the different things, social, different ways to connect with your clients and stay in touch with them. So I think it kind of depends. And but I would say if you were to weight one or the other, I would say it's probably leaning more on the individual agent and your team or your brand versus your broker.
You talked about something right there that I want to hit on. You talked about the like the socials and the CRMs and so. Out of all the marketing channels that are out there, which one have you found to be like the most successful for your business? As well, was there one that surprised you?
Social specifically?
Yeah, or not necessarily social. I mean, really any marketing medium that you.
Well, here's what we kind of think about social media. Most people don't see a Facebook post and pick up the phone and call me and buy that house. I wish they would. If you're out there, I've got a couple.
Yeah, right.
But I know for a fact that there are people that maybe I've unfortunately lost touch with over the last 5, 6, 7 years, but they reach out to me when they have a real estate need because they see my social media posts. So it's that same thing we were talking about, trying to do the multiple touches a year. They're probably getting my mailers. I know that a lot of people throw them in the garbage, right? You guys do things like that too. I
absolutely.
mean, you wish. What's the opening rate of direct mail? Like
1 to 3% if you're lucky.
Okay.
Yeah.
But maybe at
If
least
you're
they
lucky.
see my name on the envelope as they're throwing it away. But then all of a sudden they have a real estate need and they are seeing my semi-regular social media posts. So I think that is beneficial. Nobody has come right out and said, we follow you on Facebook and that's why we want to hire you.
Right.
Rob's more marketing savvy than I am. So, I mean, is there anything?
No, I mean, I think, social to me is like, so again, being a long time old school TV guy, and Amy was in TV for a long time too. Years ago, TV was the biggest, baddest, boy and girl on the block, right?
Right.
So, social's sort of that today in a way. And I don't want to, discount my TV friends that are still in the business. I still have a lot of friends, but everybody, the amount of time people spend with social on a daily basis is massive, right? But it's also like a really crowded place, and we talked about this because obviously we've worked together over the years too, and I think it's important to maintain a presence there so people know you're there. And so it's sort of like, I was just having this conversation with a client the other day. It's sort of like, back in the day, if you were using television to market your business, you're always looking for the new client. But we would also remind our clients, hey, you're also, sort of like reinforcing your current clientele that, wow, they're on TV, they're legitimate, they're great. So I think social sort of acts that way right now. And so I think Amy's right. It's like at times we do some nice social. At other times we probably just, throw some stuff out there. But it's more just to help people remind, we've got our logo and our brand, that sort of thing. But,
Sure.
because I will say, on a side note, I do think on occasion people overthink their social. And it's a tough content world, and good content's hard. And I don't think you need to spend hours and hours and hours on one post. That's just me. But it's a good reminder. And so when we throw this stuff out there, it's like Amy said, they're just going through it, and they're like, maybe they saw the mailer that we threw in the mail to them, but they're likely paging through their social and saying, oh yeah, Amy's got this new listing, or they sold this client to that property, or something along those lines. And it's a really important piece. You have to be there. I guess that's the point.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
absolutely 100% have to be there.
And I think if you had a listing that caught somebody's eye and they knew that their brother, sister, whatever had it, they could share it with them. They could point that out. So there's that aspect of it too. But to your point though, if you don't have it out there, nobody would ever know about it.
Right.
So it's consistency and staying in front of them, top of mind, like you talked about. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just such a noisy space that you can't rely on that to bring in all your
No,
business. But like you said, being there, you have to.
And it's not getting quieter.
No. I mean, I don't know if it's just my algorithm, but I could go on and see like 6 different real estate agents posting in the local groups and all their listings, like especially in your market. That is such a noisy space.
Mm-hmm.
And there is some research that shows that people don't really want to just see a listing posted, for sale, new to the market, because it gets a little boring.
Mm-hmm.
We don't do a lot of content, and we probably should. But one more thought on this whole thing. So I know some of the younger agents that have young teams. They're, and they're young and beautiful people. They're on Facebook a lot more, video and all that. And I'm sure they would say that it's really been helpful for them. Still isn't going to really, sell the houses. They still have to actually physically go do the work. And then on the complete flip side of that, we work with other agents, like on the other side of a transaction, and they'll be like maybe an older gentleman, and I'm not going to name names, but I've got one going on right now, and I looked all over the internet, and the guy doesn't have a single presence anywhere. Nothing. Zero. And I think, that speaks volumes right there, too.
That's shocking.
It is shocking. It's somebody who is, like Rob said, a very part-time agent, and this is like a family friend of theirs, and
Yeah.
I wrote an offer on one of my listings, and we're off to the races. But I couldn't find him. I don't know what he looks like. I looked him up.
It's
I
hard
wanted
to
know.
build credibility when you can't be found anywhere.
I agree. I
Yeah.
agree. Absolutely.
Well, it makes a difference too when you're in a competitive market, and if you've got multiple offers in a buying situation or selling situation, and and the selling agent doesn't know who you are as the buyer's agent, that could be a challenge. But back to one thing you were saying about the best possible marketing venue. To me, the thing I think that matters the most is being in front of people. So the direct mail, the social, any other stuff we might do. Sometimes with our listings we'll do YouTube ads that our broker will help us do, which is kind of cool. But if you're at an open house and talking to a client, and if you're talking to people about real estate, and you're in person, that seems to be the most effective way, because then they're sort of interviewing you, and you can sell them on the fact that they know what they're talking about, or perhaps they don't know what they're talking about. It's still very much a touch point business, particularly if you're we're a modest sized team. If you're a bigger real estate team, you might go buy leads, and you may have a process, and it might be a different whole story for you. But for us, I think the whole concept of networking and connecting with people and the personal communication, as far as just being in front of people, is easily the most successful.
Which makes sense, because it's a personal transaction. I mean, and many times, some people could be selling their quote unquote what they thought was their forever home, and all of a sudden they're like, hey, maybe we should look at something else, and that there's emotion tied to that. And I never realized that until I watched one of my friends sell their house that they had built and raised their kids in, and it was big freaking house. I mean, so all their kids are gone. They don't need 6 bedrooms anymore, but it was really super emotional to sell that house.
Oh, definitely.
And I think I don't know if they would have got through that without the agent that they had to work through that. That relationship's huge. That's a good point.
Yep.
So in a world where so many people, their differentiator is their price, like in your industry, talk about some of the value. And I know we've talked about relationships and some of that. What is that value that you use to differentiate yourself in an area where price plays a role, right? But at the end of the day, the price is what the price is.
Well, I guess I would say in real estate, there are different levels of service that different agents offer. So I mentioned earlier, we're full service. So we're not going to be the cheapest, but when you hire us, you get our entire package. And also, Rob mentioned we're a smallish team. So if you hire us, you're going to get us versus we're not just there to earn the listing and then we send in our B team to run with the client. So when you hire us, you get us. We've got other teammates that might help with staging and open houses, but we're handling everything. We handle high-end photography, videography if needed, drone photography. We have the social media, boosting social media. We do some pretty slick glossy marketing pieces that we mail out. We have them available at the house. We host open houses. That's like a huge thing for us. A lot of agents won't do that.
Really?
And if you're working with a limited service brokerage, which they serve their purpose too, this is not a knock. They're going to be cheaper, but they're not going to do all of those extra added things that we do that gives everybody a better overall experience in selling their house. So those things cost a little bit more, if that answers your question.
Yeah, and I suppose once you start to do that and you get that reputation of it was an easier process, it was full service, and naturally that's just going to grow your business, grow your leads.
Right, exactly. We've been on competitive listing appointments and have been told that they didn't like a very large team who somebody would come out like maybe the namesake of the team and then earn the listing and then they never see that person again. They send in other people to handle photography, they send in other people to do open houses and negotiations, and we don't work that way.
Yeah, see, that would drive me crazy.
Yeah.
And you know what's a good fit for you, right? So if someone doesn't want that, I think that's
that
good,
goes back
good
to
to
what
know,
Rob
right?
was talking about is, are you going to be a good fit?
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody wants that other side of it, if they're saying, I really don't care, then maybe it's not the right people,
Yeah.
Right, that's not your reputation. That's not what you do.
Yeah.
Over time, sort of fine-tuning how we handle this. In the beginning, when I was bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I would go after every single listing or every single buyer, of course. Now, one of the first things I say to people on the phone when they're reaching out is, let's plan a meeting, let's get together and make sure we all think we're a good fit to work with one another. We know they're interviewing us, but we're interviewing them too. And I say that in a nice way, but there have been some listings that we haven't wanted to list, and there have been some buyers that we haven't wanted to work with, and we'll if we don't, we'll certainly recommend who they should call. That might be a better fit.
Oftentimes you'll run into a situation where if the commission that the seller has to pay to the listing agent and even the buyer's agent, because sellers generally pay both in real estate, if that's too big of an issue for them, then that's probably not the greatest fit in the world for us, because you hire us to do the job, we're going to literally take over and do the job for you. Like, we're going to take care of every aspect of it. We had a situation last year with a house that had some challenges, and inspection fell through. We had to basically rebuild the basement. And we took over the entire process. They had already moved out. And I think I was there 6 or 7 times, seemed a week, coordinating with contractors and different people. And we've got a wide network of contractors we use, which is really helpful.
Yeah, right.
So we don't have just one painter. We have 3 or 4. We don't have just one foundation company. We have 3 or 4 that we've worked with and we had good experience with. So you get what you pay for.
Yeah. So, you mentioned something there, Amy, is like, back when you're young and you're wide-eyed and bushy-tailed days. So that market, that time from here to today obviously has changed. So how you had to adapt for many different things over the course of the years. How was the last few years? I mean, what has changed in the last few years that you've had to adapt and change as a team to sell a house versus what you had to do 3-4 years ago? What are some of the things you've had to do differently now that you didn't have to do then?
Sure. I mean, 3-4 years ago, we were dealing with immediately post-COVID, and that was a completely different world that we were living in.
Oh, yeah.
Interest rates were down in the mid-twos, and I used to joke around that I could pitch a tent on a corner and put a for sale sign on it, and I would have 5 offers. It was, everybody could borrow money, and it became so easy to purchase a home. It was driving up the price of the homes. It was very competitive, and now here we are 4 years later, and it is a very different market.
Yeah.
It's not as much of a seller's market. It's still not a buyer's market, but it's gotten a little bit more level, which I think is a more fair way for everybody to buy and sell real estate. We definitely had to adjust when the interest rates went up so high, which they're still historically pretty low. I don't know what they were when you bought your first house, but I mean, my parents bought their first home at like 18%. And I bought my first home at 9%, and right now they're 6, maybe just under, just over. That's not so bad. But it took an adjustment, and a lot of people left the market to buy when the rates went back up to 5 and 6, when they were at 3, 2.5, and 4 for so long.
Yeah.
So
I don't think people really realize that at all. Because, like, I mean, when I bought my first house, I think I was 8.5.
Yeah.
8.5 or 8. But I looked at my parents. You bring this up. I looked at my parents' mortgage that I found, and they were at 17.9%.
Wow.
Now the house they were buying was probably only like $50,000, but that's besides the point, right?
Yeah, well,
Different
their
price
house payment
point.
was $186, and they built the house for $21,000.
There you go. Yeah.
So I mean, it was but I mean, you think about it was $186. I'm like, really?
I always like when people are like, well, it's not the right time to buy right now. Like, you shouldn't like, when is the right time? Like, there's so many factors, and interest rates could be great or terrible, but the house prices, like, I just always laugh when people make that comment.
Well, there was that little slogan for a while, like, marry the house, date the rate. Like, if it's time to buy a house, buy a house. It's still an amazing investment. And then you can always refinance your mortgage when the rates come down a little bit. As opposed to, have you looked at, like, apartment rents right now? Especially, like, the newer construction apartment rents.
It's crazy.
$2,500, $3,500, $4,200 a month. And somebody else is getting rich off that.
Yeah.
As a renter, you're just handing somebody your money. So even if the rates are high, if you can afford to purchase it, putting it off until the rates come down is not a good idea.
$4,200.
Yeah, some of those really high-end newer apartments.
We need to get into building apartments.
Maybe.
No, I don't want to do that. I do not want to get into that. But yeah, it's interesting because, I mean, as any business, you always have to adapt. You always have to change. And your business your market is no different than really anybody else's.
Sure.
I mean, especially in that. So just a real interesting question is, now as we're kind of moving, I don't know if you're going to ask this, but moving into that with this AI stuff, how is that affecting your business and what you do? Is that?
We're at the very beginning stages of that.
Okay.
I think, there's rumors that AI is going to take over every industry. And I think when you're in a people industry like real estate, I don't see how AI is going to take over.
Yeah.
But, selfishly, not selfishly, but personally, we'll use AI to help us write some descriptions. There are agents out there. We're just at the infancy stages of it, that you can literally use AI to help you completely organize your entire CRM and your emails and in every way that you can communicate with buyers. I don't know if I'm personally ever going to get into that.
Yeah,
I'm a little old school. I like to pick up the phone and talk to people on the phone more than I like to email people. But Rob, you've been more into it than I am.
What's cool about AI is that we were just talking to a client about their listing and won the listing. It was a unique property that didn't have any really good comparable sales. And so I found AI and using different ones, whether it's Gemini, Copilot, there's obviously plenty of them out there, can be a great way to gather information and help, sort of work through the process of how you might want to price a home when it comes to listing a home. And in this particular case, it was trying to give the right price to the seller because we were up against, I think, 4 other agents for this listing. And so it's a little bit of a process. I mean, for me, it takes me a few days to go through this. Like, I just can't spend an hour, come up with my price and be done. Like, I put it down, I go back, then I think of another question. Because as I think we all know, the more you use AI, the more questions you ask it, and the better you get at using it, the more helpful I think it becomes. And so there's a little bit of a learning curve on that front. But when you're in a situation where you don't have a great comparable sale, that usually is how we price real estate, it can be really, really helpful. The other thing too, when it comes to like searching and finding agents, I think it's the answer engine optimization is a big thing, right? I know I'm sure you guys are all over that, and that's a change. And so, we want to make sure people are trying to be able to find us on our website and that sort of thing. It's a fascinating time. It really is, and I just think the more technology just offers a chance for us to be more productive.
Yeah.
And a better resource for clients. And in the end, Amy's right. There's still a level of expertise you bring to the table that, from your experience, that the AI is just never going to be able to bring.
Yeah. Well, and we talked about that emotional aspect earlier. Like, I'm sure there are people out there that they don't care about that human element, but for the most part in this business, like, it's such an emotional process. You're never gonna get rid of that human.
I don't
aspect.
think I'm ever buying a house from a robot.
Yeah, right.
Just saying.
I mean, maybe they'll come in and clean it before you move out.
There you go.
That's probably more likely than anything else, for sure.
So if you were to talk to a business owner, what's the biggest lesson that you've taken away or learned in real estate that you would share with somebody about just differentiating themselves?
I would say probably touching on what we've already kind of covered, that the human element. I, and Rob will attest to this, like to ask a lot of questions. You may ask a question and I may turn around and ask you a bunch of questions before I can answer your question. But I think that human element, talking to people, finding out what works for them, showing that you've got interest and you care, and building everything that you do based around that. It's just like that sort of, if you're meeting a business owner for the first time or a home seller, right? Because that's now our business. The minute you walk in their house, just you look around and you know exactly what you're going to talk about based on what they've got going on in their house. Like, oh, I see you're a big Brewers fan, or, it just gives you things to talk about. And that human element, that emotional connection that you make really matters so much. So I think just continuing to grow on that.
And understanding their journey, and where they are and who what kind of people they are. I think that's where that human element has to be there.
Absolutely.
Well, it's I always Amy's like, I think of the fantastic John Hughes movie Uncle Buck with John Candy, and the scene with Macaulay Culkin. Are you comparing
me to John Candy?
No, I'm comparing you to Macaulay Culkin when he asks John Candy like 8 or 9 straight questions, and he says at the end of the scene, he's like, what's your record for consecutive questions? And it's just such a great scene for anybody that's an 80s fan like myself. But asking the questions is so important because that's that process of how are we going to be a good fit or not. And then the other piece to what you were asking about, Emma, is like the takeaway is do what you say you're going to do. Be transparent, be that resource. You're not trying to shove anything down anybody's throat. Like, we're here to help you through this process. There's an old saying, there's a lender friend that we still work with, really good guy, does a lot of business for us. And he always says that real estate's a complicated process, and people at times, if you don't know a lot about it, and most people don't, they only know what you tell them. They only know what we tell them, right? So I mean, there's a lot there. So part of our job is to make sure we can kind of sift through the stuff that maybe not make them so stressful, and try to give them the advice and try to help them decide what are the best decisions for them. I mean, and just using your experience to do that. But doing what you say you're going to do, I think, is
probably the most important thing. No matter what line of business you're in, that's the number one thing.
Rob touched earlier too on communication, and it is kind of like been the cornerstone of everything that I do. And people never are going to have to hunt me down. I'm going to make sure to call them and tell them. When we have a house listed for sale, after every single showing, we follow up with that agent to get feedback from them. My clients never have to sit and wonder why they haven't heard from me for 2 days. Like, if they're looking for information, I'm getting back to them right away.
Yeah.
So that's really important. And that's based on how I feel. There's nothing worse than making a phone call or emailing somebody and then not hearing back from them. And all of a sudden you realize a whole day has gone by and you haven't heard back from them. And you hate that feeling. And I just don't ever want anybody to feel that way about how we do business.
That's awesome. That's super good advice for anybody, no matter whether you cut grass or whether you're a dentist. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Right.
Call people back, and you surprise how many people don't call people back.
Yes, that's true.
Serious.
It's annoying to me. That's a whole different day. All right. So now we're going to move on to a section where we ask you some questions and we're looking for some answers. We call these the rapid guess questions.
Just your gut reaction of what comes to mind. And if nothing, you pass on it.
You pass on it. You're fine with that. So
Can I pass it to Rob?
Yeah,
or?
yeah,
You
there you
can.
go.
All right, get ready, Rob.
There you go.
Like that. Give it over to him. Okay, so what's one thing most people misunderstand about real estate?
It's more than just opening doors. When you're a buyer, there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes.
Anything to add to that, Rob? Or is that pretty accurate? That's pretty accurate.
I think that's pretty accurate. I mean, there's a trick to it. There's a professionalism to it, and just trying to be that resource is far more important, I think, at times than people might think.
Cool. What's the best piece of business advice you ever received?
Don't confuse effort with results.
That's a good one.
That's a good one, Rob.
Oh, that
I
and
can't beat that one.
That and it's easier to ask to beg forgiveness than ask permission, but that's an oldie. We all know
I
that
just
one.
said that this morning
right.
at our B&I meeting
But it is
in
so
front of
true.
my lawyer. That was not the good thing to say.
Oh.
From the lawyer.
She says, that's not what we're doing. I said, oh, okay, bad place. All right, what's a book, podcast, or resource that you consistently go back to?
That's a really good question. I mean, there are some email newsletters and such that we get in real estate that are really helpful. Give you updates on the market, that sort of thing. One of the things we do, it's a growing part of our practice, is we do a lot in the senior real estate market, and so it's a special designation, SRES, Senior Real Estate Specialist. So I spend quite a bit of time on that information, because you had said before, like if it's selling the forever home for somebody, that's a really emotional thing.
Yeah.
And then it's also about like who's selling the home. Is mom and dad still able to sell it? Is it one of the kids trying to sell it? Like there's all these moving parts to that.
Sure.
Again, there's so many different pieces to it, and there's oftentimes emotion involved.
Right.
And so those resources are helpful.
Yeah.
All right. So what's a hill you're willing to die on when it comes to business or client service?
Hill I'm willing to die on.
That's kind of a deep question. I know a lot of people have said no.
I've died on hills before when it comes to, and I hate to make it about this again, but sometimes sellers don't want to pay a proper fee.
Right.
And I may love them and want to help them, but at the end of the day, like, we can't work for free either. And so if somebody is really adamant about a cut rate, then the question back to them is, what services are you willing to not have us provide? Because we're not taking high-end photography and hosting open houses and doing all the things that we're going to do if we're not going to be paid for it. We have to be paid. So I've died on that hill.
Okay.
A couple times.
All right.
Recently.
Makes sense. Makes sense. You have anything on that one?
So, I mean, I think the same thing. It's like you gotta get what you're worth. And we've been in real estate. Amy's been in real estate longer than me, but we've been in sales for many, many years. We know a lot of people in the area. For professional, we know what we're doing, and there's just certain things you just can't do. It's just not worth it. And you do get to a point when you get older. Emma, you'll get there someday. Skip, you're there with me because we're similar age. Yes. Where it's not every deal doesn't have to matter. Sometimes it's more about like, the business that I have, and money might always be the most important thing. And so if you have to walk away from a deal because they're just not willing to if they're not willing to pay you, they're probably not willing to give you the ultimately the tools you need to really do a great job.
Goes back to it's not always a fit.
Yeah.
For either side. We're interviewing them as much as they're interviewing us. It's not always a fit.
That actually answers the last question. We're going to say if listeners could take one thing away from today, it's sometimes it's not always the best fit in the world.
Right.
But if you could describe your business in one word, what would it be?
Joy.
Wow.
I love it.
Rob's like, this is deep. That was wow. That's.
It gives me great joy. It's a hobby. It's a lifestyle. It's my job. It's everything. I mean,
you spring out of bed and you love it.
Sleep and breathe real estate.
That's what it is.
She is exceptional at it. She really is. I always tease her. We're going to use the old dictionary, and there's a picture of Amy in there next to the real estate agent.
Oh my God.
Because that's Amy. One word I would say, opportunity. I mean, there's a sales part of real estate, particularly when you're working with a buyer, trying to help them find a property. But it also can work on the seller side too, because it's an opportunity to try to get the most for the seller. There's a part of that in the sales world that's just super fun, because the better job you do, we were talking about this earlier, it's likely going to get you another opportunity to do more business with them or a friend of theirs because they'll refer you.
Well,
So
we're talking about how personal it is, and it's a huge thing, whether you are selling the home you've lived in for 50 years and raised your whole family there, or you're selling a home to a first-time home buyer. It's such an exciting, emotional time. There's so much going on with it, and it is rewarding to be a part of that. Rob mentioned we used to sell television ads, and we're really changing anybody's lives in that industry, but this is different, and it's just incredibly rewarding.
And it's making yourself stand out like you guys have in that market is what it's all about.
Definitely.
That's a perfect way to end it. So thank you so much for joining us today and going over all these questions.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, you bet. It was been awesome.
fun.
Thanks a lot.
you bet. Thank you.
So that was pretty interesting.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, that's got to be one of the most competitive markets when you think about it. I didn't know that there was almost 4,000 agents in Southeast Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I mean, they're all biting for the. So now, if you put that in perspective, and I know I've heard this from a couple other ones, and I never really thought about it in that way. If there's so few houses that are on the market, you get that kind of pool. Holy cow!
I just think it's so fascinating. The biggest thing that I grabbed from that was that sure at the end of the day they all have their brand and their brokerage, but really their personality is their brand. And it just kept reminding me of the episode we did with Krista Tinus, right, about reputation.
Oh yeah.
And really, reputation, your personality, your brand, those are the differentiators, especially here in our small town in Wisconsin, right, where people care so much about that human element and the people that they're talking to.
In the human element, and I think that's going to transcend beyond just anywhere. I think that human element has to, when you're talking about a transaction like that, where there could potentially be emotion into it. Some people really won't give a crap of how they sell their home, but there's going to be some people that are going to be like, yeah, I was raised here, or I was born here, or whatever the case may be. And there is a lot of emotion tied to it. So I mean, that having that human element is absolutely huge. And I don't think the other part of that is I took away is that it's the experience.
Yes.
And the longevity. And we've talked about longevity on a variety of different of levels. But 14, 15 years in the industry. And now she's had generational sales. There was somebody else that I was talking with the other day. They've just did business for the grandchild of the people that they initially did business with the grandparents. So they've done the grandparents, all the kids, and all the grandkids. So that's a testament to your business, your personal attention to detail, to be able to be that kind of referral source all the way down the line. You can't put a price on that.
Right. And I think it brings it home that differentiating yourselves, not finding that new shiny object. It's really who you are and sticking to that and making sure that people know that and they feel that. And then naturally, right, that word's going to get out.
Yeah. And the one last quick point was the adaptability of how that industry or any industry has changed in the last 10 years and how it's going to change going forward and how everyone's going to have to adapt to the situations that are going on.
Yeah.
That's a key point that I think no matter what business is listening to this today, if you're not paying attention and looking down the road 3, 6, 9, 12, 2 years down the line and how you're going to adapt and being up in the trends, you could leave yourself in the dust. So if there's anything, and I probably should have stated that when she was there about how they adapted and how they're going to adapt, I think is going to be a key for any business going forward.
Definitely.
All right, well, cool. Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm Skip Ranke.
I'm Emma from Invote.
And this has been the Main Street Marketing Podcast.
You can find us anywhere you listen to your podcast or watch our full episodes on YouTube.
Thanks a lot for joining. See you later.